Enspire Partners. Inspiring people. Inspiring results.
I'd like to introduce the CEO of Enspire Partners, Tony Ford, who will be our MC for the discussion today with our panel of cybersecurity experts. Tony, welcome on the behalf of GSI. We're thrilled to have this opportunity to partner with you for today's discussion. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks for that warm introduction, Bill. Let's get rolling. I'd like to introduce the audience to our panel of cybersecurity experts, each of them highly experienced in the field with unique insights for today's roundtable. First of all, we welcome John Bassett. John is the CTO and Chief Information Security Officer at GSI. John's a leading technology advisor in the managed services domain. And in addition to almost 40 years of work in the IT space, he's authored numerous articles on cybersecurity and infrastructure. Thanks for joining us today, John.
Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. Next, we recognize Michael O'Hara. Michael is the Director of Compliance and Security at TravelNet Solutions, and previously was head of cybersecurity at Avon. He's an active member of several cybersecurity professional associations and has published multiple articles on information security. Michael also is a regular participant on roundtable discussions just like the one we're having today. The third member of our panel, Cody Comstock. Cody is an insider threat engineer with ForcePoint, an InfoSec consulting firm in the federal space. He has more than 10 years of cybersecurity experience, including service time in the U.S. Marines. Cody has a Master of Arts degree and will be completing his PhD in 2023. Again, I'm Tony Ford with Enspire Partners. I'll be serving as your MC for this webinar. For our roundtable session, we prepared several questions that are topical to the cybersecurity theme, and will afford our panelists the opportunity to weigh in on each of them. Following the roundtable, we'll open up the discussion for questions submitted from you, our audience. So John, my first question goes to you. We're seeing a significant increase in information security awareness and spend at clients of all sizes. What are some of the drivers that are propelling this activity?
It's been a real challenge, especially over the last 3 to 4 years. A few of the drivers has been a huge increase in ransomware and email compromise. In fact, that is probably the largest threat to smaller businesses that maybe had not had a mature information security program. You know, for the hackers, it's much easier to trick a human being into clicking some kind of link than it is to break something like a 256-bit encryption key or to hack a software system, although that still occurs. COVID made that much worse. The reason why is because people started to work remotely from home, and many companies did not have the technology in place, and they were scrambling to secure those people that are working remotely. And that led to an increase in end user education through tools like KnowBe4 and in additional, technology spent. In addition, I'd say that the laws are getting tougher on entities, to protect themselves.
Okay, good. I would say we actually had, shall we call it, a successful ransomware attack on Inspire Partners a few years ago. So we're living evidence that that's a real threat. Thanks, John, for your answer. Michael, do you have anything that you'd like to add on this question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. The spend is increasing because the C-level is waking up to an unfortunate reality. So long as there is money to be made, executing attacks because the ROI is low and the return on investment is extremely high, they're just going to continue. And a lot of companies, as John mentioned, haven't yet reached maturity where they can repel an attack and or react. And it's even larger companies, Colonial Pipeline, GABS, SolarWinds, and those attacks cost on the back end, an order of magnitude. So I think as more C-levels become interested in this topic, it's practical and forward-thinking to engage with your cyber leadership to reassess what your risk appetite is, or create one, what existing gaps are, what would the business impact be of an incident, and what is the effort complexity to remediate it.
Thanks, Michael, for your answer there. Let's stick with Michael, and I'll pose a new question for you. How do you effectively, Michael, how do you effectively blend proactive and reactive information security measures? And to put it a different way, when it comes to cybersecurity, how can you expect the unexpected? Oops, he's muted.
Michael, you're muted.
Yeah, it was. It took a while to get that unstuck.
Okay, he's back.
Yeah, I'll apologize to the group, to the audience also. I'm having demo and reno done, so I want to keep the noise down. Sorry. I was saying that it's not possible to prevent every attack. Environments are too complex, and the mindset with security leaders has shifted from believing you could prevent attacks, and it has moved towards a more practical take on it, which is, I can't prevent them all, but I can know that they're happening, and I can automate against any of those attacks. You try to keep bad guys out. A lot of companies have GRC obligations, and those are requiring security controls, because you really can't have compliance without security. It is forcing many companies' hands to start making that investment to be able to have that that SOAR, or that automated react mode.
Good. Let's fold Cody into the conversation. Cody, do you have any other comments on this topic?
Sure, absolutely. I think that, at least from my observation of the organizations that I work with thus far, it really helps to have some sort of organic component. And that may look like a blue team, red team balance. I've seen that having, say, a phishing campaign, a small phishing campaign, really helps drive home the many mistakes and issues that users can make, because they tend to remember those mistakes far more so than, say, using their security awareness training. Because generally what I've seen is there's two issues that we run into, and that is misconfigurations and what I call trivial user behavior. Oftentimes it's not malicious. They just click a link. They don't know what they were doing, la la land, of course. But when they learn from that mistake, they've got to meet with, say, their manager or their director. These mistakes tend not to happen. So a balance between the proactive and reactive could have just a small organic contingent of red team and blue team for an organization.
Good. Okay. Cody, I'd like to continue with you, but looking at some practical implications, can you provide some real-world examples of cyber attacks that maybe you've had to respond to, or that you've researched or studied?
Sure, absolutely. This is, I guess, a pretty interesting answer, and of course, we'll put the political perspective aside, but the one that I remember the most, and kind of wasn't involved, but I studied, was that of Edward Snowden. And no matter how you view it, it was an organization that lost data. So of course it hurt this organization. And a simple Google search right now can kind of tell you that it's been nearly 10 years and we still have people trying to figure out the impact and the severity of what he did. but it also kind of boils down into, how that may be rather typical. So like there is, I forget his name at the moment, but he was a director with the FBI under the counterterrorism department, and he was there for 20 something years. And then you have another senior analyst with the DIA that was there for many, many years. And it seems that it's just this, I don't want to say a theme, but these internal threats tend to be generated from those that are within the organization for a while and not necessarily new to the organization. And one of the concepts that I really try to drive home and reduce, or rather reshape how organizations view threats is that we commonly believe, or rather we utilize the not if but when, right? There's the increase in cyber attacks are going up every year. Generally, we're going to be hit with something. So when will it happen? But for the insider threat perspective, it's not necessarily trying to keep the external attackers out. It's that the attackers are already here, right? So from that perspective, it really forces the organization to kind of shift or reshape how they view information security and threats from the inside.
Good. Well, John, as a CISO, I'm sure you probably have some real world examples to share as well. Could you elaborate further?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I have no real world experience, but that's also extremely unlikely for any cybersecurity professional right now. As Cody just said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So to say that we've not been through it at GSI would be a lie. We have. And here's some examples. One of our clients got hit with the Lockbit 2.0 breach, and it was really very interesting. It was through a failed patch to an on-prem Exchange server. It looked like Exchange was sending a message that said that the patch was successful, but it really wasn't. And that was like in April of a certain year. And then about 6 months later, a different vendor was managing the firewall and forgot to lock down port 389, and along with the two things that Lockbit was just sitting, it didn't do any harm until sitting on the Exchange server. It kept reaching out over and over and over again, and then finally, when the hole froze up, boom, it hit hard. That one, fortunately, the cyber engineer was watching it. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and he happened to catch it as it was occurring, and he air-gapped the system immediately and prevented it from destroying everything. We've also had some email hacks where some of our account executives and other people, CFO, received what looked like legitimate RFP requests from places that we've dealt with. Click on it, boom, there it is. Now, a lot of that was mitigated through conditional access. A lot of the hacking afterwards was trying to come in via Russia, North Korea, wherever it was. It wasn't where the person was supposed to be at. As a managed service provider, what we're seeing with our clients, I'd say the biggest one, and we have seen way too many of these, were VPN hacks. Every single one that I saw did not implement multi-factor authentication, and then they got hit hard. And in fact, it's one of the things I track is every one of our clients and what they're doing about their VPNs, because we need to make sure that they're secure. Our other clients are counting on that security. So we are working with them and finding out what their game plan is. Do I have time for a couple more, or you?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. We also participated in the Kaseya breach in July of 2021, which was a really nasty one. It's for like managed service providers. We didn't get hit, but one of our partners did. Where it's like a one-to-many. You have one managed service provider that has 1,000 customers, And the spread of that hack was very fast because of the one-to-many. That opened up a new world to things, like Kaseya and other SolarWinds that had a similar hack for support service organizations. And then the final one, the real biggie, was the Log4j. Now GSI did have some custom development where we weren't using Log4j, but we had it installed on a couple of servers. Nobody was actually penetrated, but we had to mitigate the vulnerability. There was really nothing that happened to us, but we did make sure all of our clients knew that we did have code out there that we had removed.
Good.
So
Good.
there was a lot of examples, so hopefully that helps.
Thanks. With these examples fresh in our minds, John, many in the audience are probably wondering what companies should be doing now to increase preparedness. You had mentioned a couple of areas of vulnerability. Could you speak to areas that we should increase preparedness? Yeah, Michael mentioned something key, and that is no cybersecurity company software package can be perfect. You have several people that say, will you guarantee that we won't get hit with a cybersecurity attack? I don't know how you can make that guarantee. You can say, I will do everything humanly possible and I will follow the NIST framework or the ISO framework and do everything possible, but the hackers are very aggressive, very intelligent, and they're going to get you some way, somehow, or could get you. Intrusion prevention is great, nice to have, need to do your best there. But as Michael mentioned, intrusion detection is really mandatory in order to mitigate it. So in that, you want to make sure that your business continuity and DR plans are in place and tested. Something new that people are doing now is creating ransomware playbooks, because you can have a business continuity plan where you have a failure from data center A to data center B. Those don't necessarily take into consideration the sneakiness of the cybersecurity people that may have infiltrated both of your sites and or mitigated your backups. So it can be really tough. In preparing for it, and I do a presentation on this, and I hate to say this, is understand how the hackers work. You understand crypto wallets. Might even make sense to have a crypto wallet set up ahead of time, because it's going to take you a while to get one set up if they're demanding ransomware. A ransomware that if you're stuck in a position of paying it, and you're taking 2 days to get a wallet, you might want to make sure it's there if it's within the legal realm of you to even pay a ransom. Most ransomware you're going to not want to pay, if at all possible, but you might be in that dark situation. You can also involve ransomware negotiation companies, people that specialize in that. If you find yourself in that position, I tell everybody to make sure that you have a machine set up that knows how to get on the dark web, the Tor browser, because they're going to ask you to go to, if you have to pay a ransomware, they're going to ask you to go to a nefarious site. So you can even be, in that sense, you can be prepared. Also, you might want to talk to your insurance company and see what their requirements are. What we're finding, I'm hearing, this is odd, they're not, a lot of insurance companies are now asking for offline, off-site tape backups. And that seems kind of odd, it goes back 20 years or more, but I think they're thinking that in many cases could be the safe way to go. I'm not saying I agree with that or disagree with it, but some insurance companies are asking for that. Right. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks, John. Michael, anything more you'd like to respond to that question with?
I would say you've got to have clarity around your maturity status. If you don't have something running monthly, I believe you're behind the 8 ball. You've also got to have a risk register. You have to, and I say you, I'm talking about the business, not just the CISO. You have to understand what are the the incident types that can do damage to your company based upon your inherent risk, because an inherent risk of an e-commerce company is different than a nonprofit, than a hospital or a bank. And a project roadmap that will map out what that remediation schedule looks like. And I mentioned earlier about cost and complexity, you got to include that. And then probably most importantly is to have visibility, and in two ways. One, of your environment. If you don't know about something that comes in, around, and out of your network, you've got a real gap. So that's I consider that urgent. The other visibility is to have visibility at the leadership, and in a perfect world, also at the board level, if you have that or parent company. Cyber is no longer a back office annoyance. We're not the nerds who are getting in the way of everybody else in the company. This is a strategic consideration now. Just go talk to Twitter, SolarWinds, JBS, and the thousands, tens of thousands of other companies that have gotten either dinged or literally put out of business because they weren't ready.
Right. Yeah, I can tell you, even as a small company, our company, it's an expensive proposition. We had a ransomware attack where a new employee clicked a link that he shouldn't have clicked, and we were in trouble. Michael, this talk of dealing with threats now, stories of how that we've dealt with them in the past. Let's reset just a bit and talk about the future. What do you regard as the next big thing in information security? Oops, you're muted again, Michael. He's back.
And you would think I'm a technologist. Well, one of them is how the proliferation of GRC is having an impact. You can call that good or you can call it bad. It's good because if you are subject to PCI or CCPA or GDPR, and you're on the hook for that, you have to have good security controls behind that. You have to go through the checklist. I'm checking this, I'm checking that, or not applicable, or I have a compensating control. Unless you answer all those questions, you don't get certified. If you don't get certified, you are placing your relationship with clients, current and potential, at risk. I see the different GRC obligations as selling points or an opportunity for companies to socialize the importance of all of those internally and also with clients. But the real big one, there have been some very high profile, I call them CISO incidents. You have to go back to Joe Sullivan, who was the CISO at Uber, who just got convicted, for concealing information and concealing a hack through their bug bounty program. It puts the CISO in a very difficult situation. I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we are no longer the wonky guys that get in the way. If you're looking at it from our perspective, we're not business enablers. The rest of the business might be thinking very differently about that. They could see us as, well, hey, I'm the SolarWinds guy who told the CISO, we got to get rid of SAM and NPM's default password of password 123 or whatever it was. It was something absurdly easy. That never changed. by the way. I don't know if it was the root cause, but it very well could have been. So it's the increased level of risk that cybersecurity teams, not just the CISO, are subject to, and that results in somebody in that position or on that team to do a hard look at what are we doing well, what needs improvement, and where do I have a giant gap, and then going back to leadership, reinforcing that with the appropriate information, whether it's a dashboard or a FAIR analysis. I'm a big fan of FAIR. That will help you quantify what an incident could look like. I was using the free version, but I know that there are some commercial versions. Being able to quantify the dollar and therefore business impact would be very, very helpful in pushing that message out across the company.
You know, Michael's segue to talking about money is sort of appropriate. The B part of that question, Cody, I'd like for you to speak to, is with limited resources and budget, what do you think are the fundamental steps that companies can take to begin to enhance their information security? So help us sort of peel back the layers a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And I really think it comes down to having an understanding of what is happening with your data inside the organization. So, you know, kind of touch upon the first part of the question as well. You know, what's the next big thing? I think that big thing is going to continue to be the big thing. And I think that's analytics. I think that organizations having the ability to incorporate some form of analytical component, as all of these products and applications and software are now kind of getting to the point where we can integrate together. The analytical component will really provide trends and patterns. And if an organization can establish some sort of analytical component into the organization, you'll be able to really kind of foresee, you know, what are the potential issues down the line. So for instance, you know, if we see that going across a particular piece of security product, we have an IP address trying to log in 10 times every hour, right? That may be something we really need to look at, and it's not a singular event, you know, whereas, you know, Bob out of accounting sends, you know, 5 emails a day plus or minus 2 for a margin of error, and then 2 weeks later, he's sending 25 emails a day that's maxing out email capacity, right? These things might be something we want to look at, and analytical component paints the full picture. It really brings it into full view, so the organization really knows what's going on. So I think going forward, the analytical component is going to be one of the most important. And of course, as time moves on and technology is on the market, it gets a bit more affordable. So whereas the large scale companies right now may be able to afford the really glamorous analytical products, I think over time these small and medium-sized businesses will be able to afford that. And I think that the cost of the analytical products is going to be far more beneficial than the potential cost of a security incident.
Good. Thanks, Cody. That's a good answer from our whole panel to a very complicated question. For really our last question for this part of our presentation, I'd like to pivot to talk about people for just a minute. Because people cause the problems and they can solve the problems. We're on the solution side. So Cody, how can companies go about finding the right people to help them implement their information security strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Well, I think the right people are certainly important. I believe that the capabilities that the organization has is a bit outweighs finding the right people. And what I mean is, if an organization has the capability to do something without the people, that's one thing. But if it has the people without the capabilities, that's far worse. furthermore, every organization tends to have a variety of products they use. They operate differently. So I think having the right capabilities and then finding highly potential individuals to be able to mold and fit into the way the organization operates is a bit more beneficial than trying to find the right people, especially with all of these products. Technologies are very new. Something new is coming out all the time, and it may be very difficult to find an expert for that product. Whereas a general background and being able to put them into the slot of this is our suite of products within the organization, and molding them, shaping them to what the organization needs is a bit more significant and a bit more important than just finding the right people.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that just for a second. When you have cybersecurity openings, obviously think of Enspire Partners. But speaking to Cody's topic, right now we have 3 clients that are looking for cybersecurity people. The titles are almost all the same, but the underlying skill sets are quite different in each company. And a lot of that is tools related. So, they want a person hands-on with this particular tool, and they need general cybersecurity experience, but they want someone with specific experience with a given tool. I think to Cody's question, if finding the right person, maybe finding a person like Cody that could fit into a lot of different spaces in your organization, regardless of whether he has 3 years, let's say, with Microsoft Defender, which is one of our clients are very specific about their Azure environment. They need those kind of skills. So I will say, though, please think of Enspire Partners when you're looking for people. That's part of what we do. Obviously, GSI has strong cybersecurity consulting capabilities as well with people like John. John, as we wrap up the discussion, could you also speak to how, let's talk about the other side, how people interested in moving into cybersecurity can go about obtaining the experience and the certifications that they need to be successful?
Interestingly enough, I get that call, I'd say at least once a month, from somebody saying, how can I get into the cybersecurity? Can I do, younger people, can I do an internship with you on that? And I do like to start with an analogy. I like to think of the security business similar to like the aircraft mechanic business. Right now, for every aircraft mechanic that is out there, he probably can choose 7 or 8 different jobs. There's a lot of unfulfilled jobs because there are not enough mechanics. But you can't just take an automotive mechanic and say, okay, now we're going to start having you work on airplanes. You can't do that. You have to go to specific education on, for the most part, minimum of 2 years, and you have to be FAA certified. From there, you still may struggle to find a position because you don't have experience. So you may need to find yourself latching on to another professional to help you with that. The people that I talk to, I ask them, are you looking for more of a management role or a security engineer role? Because there's 2 different paths right there. Things like CISM, Cyber Information Security Manager, and CISO generally tend to be executive level, manager level positions that really shouldn't get involved with the day-to-day operations. They need to understand what the security engineer does, and they need to understand the tools, but doesn't necessarily do the work. And the other would be like a CISSP certification would be for a cybersecurity engineer, somebody that does like to get hands-on. Now, those are somewhat higher level certifications, give you an overall understanding. But you can go to places like Pluralsight and Udemy to get some online training. There's plenty of classes that you could go to face-to-face, but since the advent of the last couple of years, most people are looking for online. And then, of course, along with that is the associated certification. EC Council has a lot of both CISSP, CISO, and also pen testing education and training. For those that maybe want a more infrastructure background, you can look for like Azure, AWS, or OCI certifications. And those are really good jobs right now, good paying jobs. And there's a lot of places in the world right now to get mentoring with an experienced company.
Good. I will add that we've actually created a white paper on this topic that sort of breaks down the different opportunities that exist in this space and some information about the prereqs that are necessary. And we'll send that bill to everyone who's registered for the webinar and anyone else that would like to have access to that. I'd like to wrap up this part of our discussion and say it's been an outstanding opportunity, and I appreciate the care and the time that our panelists have taken to respond to these questions. Bill, I understand we may have had a few more questions to pop up from the audience during the panel discussion, so I'll turn things over to Bill so that he can handle our QA time. Bill? Oops, muted.
Guilty is charged. Thanks, Tony. Now we'll move into our Q&A session of our webcast. While I see we already have several questions submitted online, I would like to remind everyone that if you would like to submit a question, you can do so by clicking that Q&A button on the Zoom console bar, which you'll see either at the bottom or top of your screen. So again, if you'd like to submit a question, you can do so there. So with that, let's move into our questions from our participants. Our first question comes in from Javier, and the question is there a relative scale in which cyber attacks can be measured, specifically with regards to insider threat and external attackers? Anyone want to jump on that one?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So short answer is, coming from the insider threat perspective, short answer is no. I don't believe there is. And here's why I say that. So say you have a small to medium-sized organization, depending on the level of, or the value they associate with their data, if they were to be presented with a ransomware attack of $5 million, right? What would be reasonable to do for that small to medium-sized organization? So the information that may be captured from that ransomware attack, if it's released, it may or may not really damage their competitive advantage in that market, but the $5 million ransomware payment may be far out of reach. But if, say, I were Coca-Cola, that $5 million ransomware payment, to keep our secret ingredients off the market, which would be absolutely disastrous, would be quite an easy choice. So, as a scale, I don't think there is one. I think that there is a situational dependence for each organization, and they need to really evaluate the value of their data, what it may cost. But no, I think it just depends on the organization.
Thanks, Cody. Not sure if anyone else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I'll chime in because I have had e-commerce experience. If you were talking about PII or PCI or PHI, if you're talking about losing any of those types of records, those do have sort of I'll say a ballpark per record cost. PII is like 170, 175. PCI can be upwards of 225, and PHI is like $250 or $300 for each individual record loss. So if you were looking, if you're in the unfortunate situation of having to quantify the magnitude of an event, you can, I would suggest going out to Google and looking up, per record cost, PII or PCI or PHI. I'm hoping that's not the case, but it goes to my earlier comment around illustrating business impact. if you can create that sort of a scenario, like, hey, I'm asking for us to spend X dollars on MFA, or I want web and malware filtering, because those were two entry points that I heard Cody and John mention. It's really to your benefit if you quantify what that damage could look like. If you know you got breached and you find out that it was 50 records, that's a little nip. If it's 500,000 records, that's a catastrophic event, because you've got the per average cost to do all the remediations. You have the black eye that will be affixed to the company as news of the breach gets out. And then you have the cost of all of the remediation that's required, fixing stuff that probably should have been fixed previously.
Well, thanks, Mike and Cody, for your answers. And Javier, thanks for your question as well. Let's move to our next question. Our next question comes in from Lillian. And the question is, how many CISOs have had to make concessions due to legacy stacks? And if so, how does the quality and quantity, the elevated risk, if so, how does one qualify and quantify the elevated risk this presents? My apologies for that, but anyone like to give that one a shot?
Yeah, sure. A previous organization had a significant amount of technical debt, applications that had been around for dog years, and anything that old, and we're talking decades, is obviously not being built at that time and maintained with security in mind. As code is being developed right now, there were great tools to do that whole shift left and find vulnerabilities and bugs and code smells early in the development cycle. We also have gotten pretty sophisticated with vulnerability management and patching and daisy chaining and all that stuff. It presents a significant risk if you're not accounting for what that legacy is doing. Like best case, can you isolate all of those in its own segregated network? Make sure you've slapped as much monitoring, passive network monitoring, and EDR, XDR, MDR, so you can see all of the activity. The one real problem in corporate networks, especially larger networks, is almost all of them are Active Directory driven. And if you have legacy apps running, that means you've got TLS 1.0, you've got SMB, you've got numerous protocols that are clearly something for a threat actor to just feast upon. That, all of those mitigations, segregation, and putting as much monitoring as possible, you still have an elevated level of risk. And again, try to communicate that with, numbers if possible, like, hey, legacy financial application, it's got 10 million records that has PII in it, and it's not encrypted. If somebody gets into that, it's showtime. So just make sure that you are communicating what the risk is, what a possible business impact could be, and then, I guess, beg to upgrade those systems. And really what you're doing is you're informing the business, and you're also giving yourself, a lifeline.
Well, thanks, Michael. Appreciate that. Would anyone else on our panel like to comment on Lillian's question? Okay, well, let's keep on going then. Thanks, Mike, and Lillian, thanks for your question. Our next question comes in from Vidya, and the question is, where can someone go to learn more about current attacks and trends?
I can take that one.
Thanks, John.
All right, I can tell you what I do. First and foremost, I have in my browsers, I have a folder of what I call cybersecurity sites. So there's probably right now there's 20 of them. And I'm not going to use these as the real example, like TOGAF, NIST framework, and all that. But if you're just looking for general information, my opinion is the first place to start is in the United States is CISA.gov, CISA.gov. There's a wealth of information there, and you can get signed up for their alerts so that current attacks, things that are happening today, will be in your inbox as soon as they're aware of it. I do find if it's an urgent attack, they might be a day or two behind, but at least it'll get you up to speed on what's going on out in the world, what some of the most common attack vectors are, like Lockbit or Daxon or whatever the latest thing that is going on. The FBI has good information as well. One that I've recently started using is a part of NIST. It's the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Many of you may have heard of NIST. It would be www.nccoe.nist.gov. There's security guidance, there's approach, news, and insight. And I actually have a good one that I use for small to medium-sized business. Since we're an SMB, we often work with small to medium-sized companies. The United Kingdom has a really great site, iasme.co.uk is great. It's a way to get certified if you're in Europe. It's a particularly good, especially in the UK. Your businesses can get certified with it. The Civil Aviation Authority in the UK uses it. So I have a bunch of other little blogs that I belong to, people that I've met over the years. When I got my CISO certification, there's some LinkedIn group that I follow. Although what ends up happening in LinkedIn, unfortunately, is you join the group and many people use it as an aggressive sales opportunity. Can we talk? Can we get a meeting? You're like, no, I'm just connecting with you so that we could share ideas and information. So that can be a little overwhelming, but there are still some good groups out there.
Thanks, John. Cody, Mike, anything you'd like to add to John's comments?
Yeah, actually, there's another really good site that I've really enjoyed looking at, and that is the Talos Intelligence by Cisco. I think, with their vulnerability information, the vulnerability reports, and showing the host names, IP addresses, and whether it was legitimate spam or malware, would really at least open up some of these avenues that organizations can look at, where they can create blacklists, whitelists, or what have you. So I think the Cisco Talos, as well as I think it's Google Project Zero. I think that's also a really good one. Yeah. You really can't get any better resources than what John put out. But those are two extra ones that I think are really helpful.
I would tack on any of your vendors that are worth their salt are going to have notification capability. So for all of your vendors, make sure that you were signed up to receive any alerts that get sent out. for, those high critical 0-day stuff.
Okay, well, thank you, Cody, Mike, John, for your answers, and Vidya, thank you for the question. That appears to be the end of our questions. So I would like to thank Tony for emceeing today's webcast. Mike, Cody, and John, thanks for being panelists. And of course, thanks to all of you that have participated in today's webcast. As a follow-up from today's roundtable discussion, we do ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey, and that'll come up as soon as you exit the webcast. So if you can complete that, we'd really appreciate it. We'll be doing a drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card, and anyone that completes the survey will be eligible to win. And of course, we'll notify the winner. You'll also be receiving an email in the next couple of days with a link to a recording from today's webcast. We're also going to be sending out that white paper that Tony had mentioned. And if you do have any follow-up questions for Enspire Partners or GSI, you can contact us with the information on the screen. And thanks again for attending today's presentation, and have a wonderful day.